Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live show. Today, we'll be discussing the mindset and habits of an entrepreneur. You can take a friend, you can invite somebody, and if you have any comments, you can add them to the comment section. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, you can also type them in the comment section. Then the questions will be addressed. Maybe you're wondering, why would we discuss the mindsets and the habits of an entrepreneur? I was listening to a speaker earlier, and he was saying, if you notice that if you hear like 20 people will tell you that you're exceptional, then only 2 people tell you that you're bad or you're useless, you focus more on the 2. I guess it also even happens in maybe even on social media. If 200 people comment and they say something positive, and a few people say negative, we tend to magnify the negative comments over the positive comments. And they always say the only affirmation you need is you. I was just thinking of a quote I posted a week ago, which says, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is then an act, but a habit. And where I found the quote, and they said it was said by Aristotle. You also say that I never could have done what I have done without the habits of punctuality, order, and diligence, without the determination to concentrate myself on one subject at a time. Today, we're talking about mindsets and habits of successful entrepreneurs. Themba, will you share with us 25 mindsets and habits of successful entrepreneurs?
Thanks, Stefazo. But before I share with you the habits and mindsets of successful entrepreneurs, probably, as we normally do, let's just start with some things that have interested me this week. Call them news items, as we always do. Then we will go into what you have requested me to do. So there are 3 things that I would want to bring to our attention. The first thing is on the inflation front. It looks like globally inflation is being tamed. In other words, inflation, which is the rise in the general level of prices, it's actually getting under control. So in the US, the latest inflation numbers that are coming there are actually showing that inflation is moderating. In other words, it's getting under control. And there is a similar picture in South Africa as well, in the UK, and even in Zimbabwe. Many economists are actually saying that the introduction of the ZiG currency in Zimbabwe is actually helping to control inflation. So when I say inflation is moderating, I'm not necessarily saying that prices are coming down. What it basically means is that the rate at which prices are increasing is actually slowing down. That's essentially what it means. So what does it mean to our personal finances? What it essentially means is that in the second half of the year, we may actually see interest rates being cut. And if we get to that situation where interest rates are being cut, you know what our advice is. Our advice is always get out of debt as much as you can. And when you get out of debt, start by paying off your high interest debt. That's our advice. And that has always been our advice. So the first piece of news there is that inflation is coming down. Then the second thing that I would want to talk about is aging and money. This week, Tafadzo, I've been reflecting on this subject on getting old and managing our finances. And I've been reading a book which I have now finished. The book was written by a professor from the United Kingdom. He actually teaches economics at the London Business School of Economics. His name is Andrew Scott, Professor Andrew Scott. He wrote a book titled The Longevity Imperative: How to Build a Healthier and More Productive Society to Support Our Longer Life. There were 3 takeaways for me from that book. Takeaway number 1, because of advances in technology, we are living in an environment and in a context in which we are going to be living for a longer time. So from his research, he indicates that human lifespans have doubled in the last century. In fact, in America, for example, the life expectancy there is 87 years. So in all likelihood, we are going to live longer lives. The second thing that I got is that this question of an aging population is one of the major trends of our time. So if you look at the forces that are shaping economies these days, it's things like climate change, it's things like artificial intelligence, it's things like the huge inequality gap that we have in the world at the moment. But in addition to those 3 issues, the issue of people living long is something that economists are actually concerned about at the moment. And then the third thing that he talks about is that because there is this, let's just call it a seismic shift in longevity, we need to be prepared for it. And my advice to all of us as you listen to us today is that it does not matter what your age is at the moment. In all likelihood, barring the effects of a war, barring the effects of a nuclear disaster, barring the effects of a major pandemic, in all likelihood, you are going to survive well into your 80s, and even for some people into your 90s. So here are some of the things that I would want to advise you. Number 1, start eating healthy. I have noticed a pattern, Tafadzwa, because one of the things that I enjoy doing is studying the lifestyles of rich people. What I have noticed is that rich people don't go to McDonald's or KFC, or neither do they eat those fast foods. Probably the only rich person who is an exception in my study is Warren Buffett, because Warren Buffett prefers a McDonald's breakfast. But generally, most rich people don't do fast foods. They don't eat processed foods. It's only the poor people that actually eat those kinds of things. I was even studying a report which I will reference later on, and that report tells us that 50% of South Africans, for example, are actually obese and are living very unhealthy lives, essentially because of poverty. So the first piece of advice that I have, because we are living long, is that try to eat healthy. Because if you eat healthy, in all likelihood, you're not going to be sick in your old age, and you're not going to drain yourself in terms of medical expenses. I always like sharing with people some of the things that I'm doing myself, and I'm not lying about this. This is what I do. Once I began to be enlightened concerning these issues, this year I started being a vegetarian. So I've just moved to a vegetarian diet. And in all likelihood, I'll continue on that path, because that's some of the habits that I have seen. I'm going to talk about some of the simple habits of rich people, of entrepreneurs. One of the things is that they are actually getting concerned about how they eat. And some of them eat, not only do they eat healthy, but they also exercise. What is the point of accumulating wealth and then you are not healthy? I think one of the statements that we are hearing these days is that your health is your new wealth. at the moment. So that's my piece of advice, the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is that start maximizing your retirement contributions, because in all likelihood, take for example, if you retire at the age of 65, in all likelihood, you'll be living for the next 25 years. How are you going to survive for those 25 years if you do not have enough saved for retirement? There is another report that I would want. It's a very interesting report that I would want to share with you concerning longevity. And this is a report that was published by the University of Witwatersrand concerning aging and money. Can I make a suggestion to you, Tafadzo, before I go on? Probably next week we should talk about aging and money. In other words, how do you manage money throughout your transitions as you age? Because that's very, very important. For example, a millennium cannot manage money the same way that a baby boomer or a Gen Z person is actually doing. We need to prioritize the management of money depending on where we are in our lives. The third piece of advice that I got, concerning the longevity imperative, is that what you learned 20 years ago might not be applicable in the next 30 years. So we are living in a time where we would need to unlearn certain things, relearn other things, and continually upskill ourselves. So what is likely going to happen is that as you age, there is need to learn new skills, because you would need to earn money for a longer time. Make sure you do not stop earning at the age of 35, which is what our parents went through. It's time to even learn entrepreneurial skills. You can start a new business even at the age of 65, because that's the reality. The reality is that your pension fund will not have enough money by the time you retire, and therefore you would need to earn quite a lot of money even after you have retired in courts. So we are living in an environment where the whole concept of retirement is being revised, so to speak. So that's my book, The Longevity Imperative, which I have found very interesting. The second thing, again, talking about the topic of aging, on Friday, Tafadzwa, I follow Warren Buffett quite a lot. He's one of my favorite characters. On Friday, Warren Buffett donated 5.3 billion to charity, to 5 charities. So of the obvious charity that got the most was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think they got something like 4 billion. And then the difference was actually split between 4 charities that are being run by his 3 children. He has also set another charity for his late wife. So 3 things that I learned from Warren Buffett. Number 1, money is a force of doing good in this world. One of the reasons why I would want to become a billionaire in my life and become extraordinarily wealthy is so that I may accumulate money to do good things in this world. And one of the good things that I would want to do is to finance the preaching of the gospel. What I have seen about rich people, wealthy people, especially after studying people like Warren Buffett, is that it gets to a point in your life where you become generous with your money. So Warren Buffett, that's the one thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned, last week we were talking about setting up trusts, Tafadzwa. So Warren Buffett also announced that he will be setting up a charitable trust after he has died. Warren Buffett is currently 93. So he did a speech and he actually reworked his will. And in his reworked will, he is going to leave his money to this new charitable trust that will be run by his 3 children. I don't think his 3 children actually have got real jobs. All they do is to run philanthropic organizations based on the donations that Warren Buffett is doing to them. I think last year alone, he donated something like 820 million. And I think in the previous year, he donated 750 million. Imagine if you were that rich, Tafadzwa, donating money to causes that matter. No wonder why he has lived that long in his life, because obviously he's stress-free, but there is quite a lot of purpose in what he's doing. And one of the things that I have learned, particularly from this book, The Longevity Imperative, is that the presence of a purpose in one's life will cause you to live long. And part of the purpose that we can pursue is doing good with the wealth that we would have accumulated. And then let me move on, Tafadzwa, still talking about the subject of aging and money. I referenced this particular study that was done in South Africa by the Wits University. It's been a long-standing research that they've done. They did a research among rural communities in South Africa, and they had a sample of 120,000 old people in rural South Africa. And here is what they found out. And I would want your comment on this. We are talking about getting old and money. There are two particular findings from this research that I would want to bring to your attention, Tafadzo. Research finding number one, people who receive cash payouts in their old age are likely to age slowly and are likely to remember things much more than people who do not receive cash payouts. In other words, they are doing a research among people who receive mostly grants from the government, and they had a sample of 120,000 in 31 villages in South Africa. And the conclusion that they came to is that, number one, if you're an old person and you are receiving regular cash payouts, you tend to have less instances of dementia. You remember more because you are handling money. That's amazing. And then secondly, people who receive money tend to age slowly. So what does that mean to all of us? It means that if you get old and you are no longer receiving money and you are financially stressed, the possibility of you living a short life is very, very high. The possibility of you getting sick from dementia and the things that old people suffer from is also very, very high. I found that very interesting, which means if you want to live long, make sure that you are also set up financially so that you can sustain your life. It's less, it's less stressful, but it's likely going to, keep you living for long. No wonder why a person like Warren Buffett at 93 is still chief executive of a very large company. He's still remembering some things. It's because he's always handling money in his life. What do you think about that, Tafadzo, before we move on to the next segment?
I think doesn't it depend on people, because there are some people in the rural areas who live long just because they are surviving on their farm produce, and they're just active, and probably they're not idle every day, because just like we are giving an example of Warren Buffett, who he takes McDonald's because maybe he has shares in it, and still he has lived long. He's doing what you mentioned that we shouldn't do, eating fast foods, and is getting money. So maybe there's a balance there. He's receiving money every day, that's making him live long, but he's also not following the rules. of eating healthy. So yeah, I was going to comment later because, you know, sometimes when people get money, we especially the fast foods, some of us, we only got to know McDonald's, KFC in our old age. So if you also tell us to leave McDonald's, and I think maybe we may die young because we meet a great part of life. And these guys also, they're very strategic, especially if you have young children in the house, because they position the KFC, especially next to schools, so that when you just come out of school, you're facing McDonald's, you're facing KFC. So they're also very strategic, which I was also going to question, that is it necessarily that poor people eat fast foods because they position themselves also? And especially if you have young children, you have to be very disciplined not to take the fast foods, because the children definitely will take them. So I think it's relative. It's not like
so it's not relative, Tafadza. It's not relative. The reason why I asked you that question is to deliberately pick up your brain. So let me reference two things here. I was listening to an interview by one of the persons that I also follow. His name is Themba Mazibuko. Over the past 10 years, he has actually changed his diets. He doesn't eat bread anymore. He doesn't eat red meat anymore. He's moderate in his eating, but he goes to the doctor. I think he's in his 60s at the moment, late 60s. And one of the things that I got to understand from that interview is that the rich people, in terms of their mindset, they are paying quite some attention in terms of a healthy lifestyle. And that's one of the messages that we are communicating here. Then today, Tafazo, I got a clip on WhatsApp. This is a doctor who is based in one of the countries, and he's making an observation concerning what they call lifestyle diseases, diabetes, and all of these diseases. And one of the things that he said, which is quite, important for all of us, is the diets of rich people and poor people. He made an observation that rich people are actually going to those traditional foods. If you look at the diet of rich people, they've literally abandoned your McDonald's and your KFC and all these unhealthy foods. And that's part of the mindset that we are talking about today. As an entrepreneur, and that's one of the habits, you need to be exercising daily. You need to be eating healthy. And that's one of the things that I would want to touch on in my 25 habits, Tafazo. Probably let's go into the 25 habits without wasting time. So in case you are wondering, where do these habits come from? Let me just mention two things. Number one, success is something that can be studied. It's something that can be learned. Don't think of success as something that just happens to you miraculous. One of the things that I have learned is that success can be taught. Success can be caught. Success can be modeled. Success can be reduced into a body of knowledge. So I've made it a point in my life to study successful people and what they do. And so these 25 things in terms of mindsets and habits of successful entrepreneurs, these are things that I have gleaned from observing rich people and successful entrepreneurs. I think from my talk so far, you have picked that I'm a fan of Warren Buffett. I've studied him. I've also studied Themba Mazibuko in detail. In fact, at one point, I was sitting next to him in church and I was observing him. I've also studied quite a number of successful people as well. And so these 25 mindsets and habits come from observing successful people. It also comes from reading about successful people. I've made it a point in my life that almost on a weekly basis, I read a book about success, because success can be learned, success can be taught, For example, I told you today I have finished a book on the longevity imperative. So let's just talk about the 25 mindsets and habits of successful entrepreneurs. Number one, and these are day-to-day habits, they take long walks. So one of the things that I have observed about successful people is that within their routine, they create time to reflect on what is happening in their lives. They create times to wind down. So, for example, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, he was known for taking long walks. And the reason why he did this, he did it for exercise, he did it for contemplation, he did it for problem solving. Maybe long walks is not your thing. Maybe you prefer taking a shower. I'm one of those people. My most creative time is when I'm taking a shower. And so I tend to take long showers quite a lot. It's one of those habits, mindsets of successful people. Number two, they are very curious. One of the things that I have seen about successful people is that they are very, very curious about, some of the things. I think it's something that you pick if you read a book like, the famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think he makes that point quite clearly. Successful people, one of the things that you will see, and even successful executives for that matter, they write handwritten thank you notes. So if you do something particularly good, or they want to compliment you and they want to appreciate you, they prefer just writing, taking the extra time to handwrite a message. And that's one of the things that successful people do. They handwrite, appreciation notes. They are freedom chasers. That's mindset number one. They are particularly interested in freedom. And 4 freedoms that they are interested in, particularly. Number one, money. So financial freedom. Number 2, freedom in relationships, purpose, and time. In other words, freedom as far as time is concerned. So we're not only just talking about freedom from demons. I come from a church environment, and the talk there mostly is about deliverance, freedom from demons. So people are looking forward to being delivered. In addition to that, there are the freedoms that we must pursue: financial freedom, time freedom, the ability to have time which you can utilize, effectively. And I have seen this thing about entrepreneurs, that they have got a desire to have control over their time. And it's something that I've learned, and I will mention it, later on. Number 5, they are coachable. Show me any successful person. They are not a know-it-all kind of person. If I encounter somebody who is a know-it-all kind of person, who is not coachable, I can almost predict that they are not going to be successful in their lives. Successful people, in terms of mindsets, in terms of habits, they crave coaching all the time. They get success coaches. If they see that there is a shortcoming in their lives, they are very, very coachable. Number 6, they don't hang out with average people. They surround themselves with the best people, forcing them to be better. You look at boardrooms of successful people, they recruit the best. You don't have to be the best thinker in your company, the best in terms of everything. I've run away, Tafazo, from people who think that they know it all, and who are threatened by people who think in a more superior fashion than them. If you are to be successful in life in terms of habits, you must not be threatened by somebody's success, somebody's intellect. If you see somebody who thinks in a much more superior way than you, hang around with that person, because that's how we are all going to be successful. So the thing about successful people is that they seek people with energy and avoid those people who suck energy out of their lives. And and one of the things that I would give you as a tip to being successful is that hang out with people out of your league. Obviously, every one of us has got their own league in which we play in, but make it a habit to hang out with people that are out of your league. Number 7, they are visionaries. They are very clear about their goals. They remind themselves about the goals they would want to achieve in their long-term plan. You know, they have got a big picture mentality in terms of what they are not confused about what the impact they would want to make on the world. Number 8, they are very obsessed with learning. They read books, right? I've gotten into the habit of reading one book every week. And it doesn't matter at whatever age you are in, there is always something that you can learn. And one of the things that I've seen in terms of mindset, in terms of habits of successful people, is that they are very, very obsessed with learning. In other words, they've realized that you need to be a lifelong apprentice of life. There are things that you do not know about life. So you need to be continually reading books, listening to podcasts, learning. I don't waste my time. I listen to people that challenge my thinking. I want to know about new knowledge. I want to ask people, questions about what it is that they are learning. Number 9, successful people are very ruthless with their time. You don't waste their time, at all. I remember interviewing a very successful person and trying to learn about the secrets of their success. And their answer was very simple: I don't waste time. He said that there are 4 areas of my life that get 100% of my attention: my family, my friends, my business, and my faith. So what they do is that they block time to make sure that they focus on those 4 areas. And my advice to you is don't waste time. Think of areas that you would want to focus on. And this person was saying, my family comes first, my friends, my business, and then my faith as well. He says, if an opportunity does not fit in one of those areas, I'm ruthless in saying no. And later on, I will tell you about the law of focus. Successful people do not struggle to say no. No is a very good answer. There are opportunities that will come your way. There are people that will demand your time. You need to say no so that you can focus on certain areas. Related to that, and this is number 10, they trade money for time. In other words, they know how much their time is worth. I'm very fortunate that I come from a services environment where I charge per hour. And so I'm very careful about how I spend time, because the way I think about it, say, for example, I charge 5,000 an hour. I'm just giving a number there. If you waste an hour of my time, I would have wasted 5,000 rands right there. And that's how entrepreneurs and successful people think about time. If you give me a task to perform, such as, for example, cleaning plates, I can do it. But if it's going to take me an hour, I would rather hire somebody who can do it at a cheaper cost so that I can focus on what I'm very, very good at doing. What do you think about those 10 mindsets and habits, Tafazo?
I was going to comment, maybe you can also address it, is that on the issue of healthy, is it necessarily that rich people are particular about their health, or it's success for people, and does success always equate to financial resources? Because I was just thinking of our former president. I heard that he was very particular about what he ate, former president in Zimbabwe, and he lived long. I'm not sure about financially, maybe it was not disclosed to the public, but well, talking about mindsets, is it equal to rich people are careful about what they diet, or is successful people, and does success always equate to money?
So we're talking about the mindsets of successful entrepreneurs today. And so obviously success will bring riches later on, but you have to have a certain mindset. And the mindset that we're trying to encourage here is a mindset where you actually watch your health. And I can tell you now, I was, I actually, Tafazo, you would know that I went to, the school that the former president that you're talking about also went to. So I actually greeted him one day, and the headmaster of our school introduced me to him. I'll never forget, him saying my name. What did you say? His name is Themba. He actually pronounced my name. But one thing that I can tell you about that former president is that because, he also had lunch in the same complex that we were staying in. And people prepared traditional foods for him. And that's a trend that we are beginning to see with people, particularly with their budget. We live in an environment where there's a lot of processed foods around. Tafadzwa, there's one mentor that you know. I will not mention his name, but we visited him was it at the beginning of this year? And did you remember when we were having dinner with him? Let's not mention his name, but I would want you to agree with me here. When we were having dinner with that person, his wife died, and we had gone to see how he was doing. Did you see how careful he was with the foods that he ate? In fact, his cook had prepared dessert for us. And he was actually laughing because he did not take dessert, he did not take sweet things. And he was very particular about what he eats. He doesn't eat certain things, at least bear me out on that, Tafazo, because we can use that person as an example. These are the people that I am learning from. And when I say the 25 mindsets and habits of successful entrepreneurs, you will agree with me that he is a successful entrepreneur. And one of the reasons we were having dinner with him was to observe him and to observe how he eats. And, maybe you can speak to that, Tafazo. What was your observation about that man? Let's not mention his name.
Yes, I know they're very particular about what they eat. It's unfortunate that I was not converted then. I had dessert. It's a weakness.
No, it's a weakness. It's a weakness. We're not here to address your weakness. I just wanted you to make an observation about that, because we do visit these people and we do make observations. And I'm not saying be like him, but at least for the people that are listening to us, let them be convinced that we're not just speaking these things because we're trying to create content. These are things that we have observed of people. And I'm talking to you about 25 mindsets and habits of successful entrepreneurs. He is a very successful entrepreneur. He's always on his bike, Tafadzwa. That man is always on his bike, and he's always exercising. And these are the people that we are talking about. And he's very wealthy. And I can give you, I was talking to you about Strive Masiwa, and I can give you other people. Let's move on to the next 10, Tafadzwa. Number 11, They don't fear failure. Tafatso, we've trained our children to believe that failure is a bad thing. But failure, particularly innovative failure, I'm beginning to think differently about failure, Tafatso, because we have to unlearn certain things. We have to relearn certain things. And one thing that I have seen about successful people in terms of their mindsets and in terms of their habits, they are not fearful of failure. In fact, they actually, in some instances, reward what we call innovative failure. And that mindset of not fearing failure is a key component of success of successful entrepreneurs. Number 12, we've mentioned this, and so I will not repeat it. Successful people exercise often. They have got an exercise routine. I'm not going to talk about, the areas that you're going to, be impacted. When I learned about this, Tafazo, I got one of these smartwatches, and I've got a daily target every day. I need to do at least 6,000 steps. I need to exercise for at least 1.5 hours every day. And I need to burn at least, 500, kilojoules of energy. Number 13, they are very disciplined. They are very disciplined. Discipline is what will take you to freedom. They've got certain disciplines. It could be disciplines in terms of their sleeping routines. I do not know of any successful person that I have come across who is not disciplined. Number 14, they can be very unrealistic. Successful entrepreneurs tend to be unrealistic. They want to break records. Talking about innovations, the previous week I was reading a book about innovations, and they were talking about having a moonshot idea. Probably we'll talk about that in some other presentation. But when I say that successful people are unrealistic, they want to break records. Steve Jobs was one such entrepreneur. He would be very unrealistic in his goals. Think of an entrepreneur like Elon Musk. Sometimes when you talk to these people, they are very unrealistic. They want to do things that have never been done before. They don't believe that there is anything that is impossible. It's that impossible, thinking the impossible, that mindset of nothing is impossible, that distinguishes successful people from people that are not successful. So maybe let me ask you a question if you're listening to me. Of all the things that you would want to achieve in your life, do you have a moonshot goal? A moonshot goal is a goal of achieving impossible things. Number 15, they say no to almost everything. Let's just call it the law of focus. Warren Buffett once said, he was being interviewed, having dinner, and he said, really successful people say no to almost everything. If you find a yes person, can we go out for this? Can we do this? And the person is always saying yes, they are not going to be successful. Number 16, they run great meetings. One of the time wasters in life is meetings. People like wasting time in meetings quite a lot. If I've observed successful people when they run meetings, especially successful entrepreneurs, they like to make their meetings exciting. They like to make their meetings very productive. So the best in the world out there run very successful meetings. They don't just go through agendas because that's how meetings should be done. But improving the way we run meetings as entrepreneurs is an opportunity to enhance the performance of companies. Number 17, they plan their week on a Sunday. It's something that I have always taught, but I've never really applied. But I'm seeing that successful people, before the week begins, they always plan their week. What am I going to achieve this week? What am I going to achieve this month? And especially on a Sunday, when the activity is not there, it's a relaxed day, they actually plan their whole week, and they take time to really plan. They have got courage. And when things get hard, they are not really discouraged. Hard times are when successful people separate themselves from the rest. I can almost tell whether you're going to be a successful entrepreneur or not by how you handle hard times. Some people just break down when they come against a wall. They do not have this ability to be resilient. They don't have this ability to be persistent. I saw a very important quote from what one person posted yesterday. And the quote went something like this. I'm rephrasing here. The teachers lied to us. They told us that talent could make you successful. But what makes us successful is actually resilience. And it's something that one successful entrepreneur, Tafadzwa, last week we were talking about this company called NVIDIA. You still remember NVIDIA. We spoke about this company last week. The CEO of NVIDIA was interviewed at Stanford University, and I was listening to his interview. He said something which is very important. He said two things which are very important. He said to the Stanford, Stanford is one of the Ivy League universities in America. So these are bright students. And he said to them, look, the reality about life is that suffering teaches you quite a lot. If you see somebody who is going to be successful in life, it's most probably somebody who has suffered in their lives. And that's why you see that talented people sometimes do not get to be successful because they can't handle discouragement. They can't handle setbacks in life. But it's those hard times that distinguish successful people. Some people who do not get to be successful are very emotional. They start blaming God. They start blaming their ancestors. They blame everyone when things are not working out in their lives. But successful people take responsibility. They have got courage. They try to work themselves out of that situation, and they are on the lookout for opportunity. They don't regret. Number 19, they block large chunks of time to do meaningful work. When I talk about meaningful work, I'm talking about things that will move the dial in their lives. They plan carefully. If you look in their diary, they actually block time to do certain things that some people would never do. And then number 20, they vacation frequently. The most successful people that I know take vacations. If you see somebody who says it's expensive to go on holiday, they're not going to be successful in their lives. One of the things that I have learned observing people that are successful, they always say that, look, I went to this amazing vacation. I met, great people. I learned quite a lot. It was an opportunity to recharge. It was an opportunity to broaden my horizon. And I've come up with the best ideas. So one of the things that you will see about successful people and why they want to take vacation is that they use those times for creative thinking. Whereas people that don't want to take vacations, they just go on with what they're doing, and they don't take time to think creatively about life so that they can be focused in their energies. What do you think about those habits and mindsets, Tafadzo?
A couple of months ago, I posted on the page and I asked people what they understand or what the definition of being rich is. So one of the people commented that for them, if they are in the rural area and they have their family and everything there, to them, they are rich. So I just got a question here. I just wanted to give like a background. This is not the person who commented that being at in a rural area, for them is rich. I know some people living the most expensive house in the Gulf states, somewhere is being rich. So Tendai is asking here, he says, very noble what you said, however, very difficult to implement in a rural setting. How do you select clever friends in a rural setting? I'm not sure whether Tendai is implying that there are no clever people in the rural setting.
No, I get where it's coming from, Tafazo. I get where it's coming from. Yeah.
The other question says, saying no in a rural setup will create you more enemies, and the funeral at your house will be shunned. Can you surely make it if you start a business in a rural setup?
Yeah. So there are three things that I would want to say to Tendai. Number one, environment accounts for success. I think that's been our belief, Tafazo. There are certain environments where you will not be successful. And I think the Bible bears me out, here. You think of a person like Abraham, the great father of faith. He was called out of a particular setting to go to a land that God was showing him. I don't think he would have been successful in that particular environment, Tafazo. The way even that God thinks is that he has to take you out of certain environments, out of certain ways of thinking, into another setting. So if you, not that I've got anything against rural backgrounds, all I just want everyone to evaluate is that, is this environment going to make me successful? I've had to come out of certain environments, even certain countries, so that I can realize success, elsewhere. So the first answer to Tendai is that environments do account for success. There are certain environments where you're going to just waste away. Secondly, much of success is around the people that you hang around with. If your family is not going to enable you to be successful, then you need to come out of that family and help them when you are successful. Because the people that you hang around with, apart from the environment that you are in, also account for your success. So move out of certain environments, stop certain friendships that are sucking energy out of you. There is nothing wrong in saying, no, I don't want to associate with you anymore. In fact, one of the things that I have seen about successful people is that they've got very few close friendships. The more successful you're going to be, the tighter your circle is going to be. If you want to please everyone in life, you're not going to be successful. And you're always going to be part of the circus in town. That's the thing that I'm going to say. Then the third response that I would want to give is that don't give in to social norms. We all come from environments where you are expected to do certain things and where there are expectations of people. Do your life according to people's expectations, you are not going to be successful. Sometimes successful people make a decision to go against social norms and to disappoint certain people because they are pursuing a goal. And I can give you, a number of a number of examples. So let me give you Strive as an example. I don't think if Strive had stayed in Zimbabwe, he would have been the billionaire that he is at the moment. He's one person that I have learned from in terms of environment. He left that environment. It was not conducive for him. He went to another environment. There was quite a lot of persecution in that environment. And, he went to South Africa, left South Africa, he's now in the UK. He's now built a global business. That's what successful people do. Sometimes, as part of being successful, we have to have a nomad mentality. Leave certain people, dissociate for ourselves from certain people, come out of certain mindsets, and begin to develop new habits. But let me move on to my last 5 mindsets and habits, Tafadzwa. Number 21, which is related to what I have said. Successful people do take plenty of time off work. Obviously, it's related to what I have said previously, taking vacations. But what I have seen is that one of the reasons why successful people take time off is because they want to think the best ideas. Look, if you're going to make progress in your life, you have to be very innovative. And innovation does not come, or creative thinking does not come when you are busy in routine things. Sometimes you have to separate yourself and be in a very quiet environment so that you can think your best ideas and you can tap into a supernatural power. And that's what successful people do. Sometimes they take time off to just meditate, so that they can think their best ideas. And this applies also to athletes. For example, Usain Bolt would take 2 months off in an off season just to allow his body plenty of time to recover before he started training. Look, plenty of work, wasting yourself in work will not get you anywhere. Number 22, they know how to have fun. So sometimes fun is at the core of an entrepreneur's success. Richard Branson, I think he used to teach a masterclass called Never Forget the Fun. If you are not having fun, you're doing it wrongly. Number 23, they use mastermind groups. I think the whole idea of masterminding came from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. So we're talking about having a group of close people. Sometimes successful people use that group of close people to mastermind on ideas. Number 24, they are very generous. I started off by telling you about Warren Buffett, who donated 5.2 billion to charities. That's what successful people are. The most meaningful way to succeed is to help others succeed. Don't be selfish when it comes to success. My observation is that successful people always want to invest in the next generation. They always want to make others, successful. And then the last thing, Tafadzo, successful people always think at a higher level. It's all about thinking at a higher level. One of the reasons why you are where you are at the moment, it's because you are thinking at a lower level. What successful entrepreneurs always try to do is to outthink the crowd. And sometimes successful entrepreneurs even block time in their diary to just think about what competitors are doing and how they can outthink the competitor. It's not normally about working twice as hard than your competitor. Sometimes it's about superior thinking. So successful people think at a higher level. And that's the last mindset and habit that I would want to leave you with, Tafadzo. I see that our hour is up, Tafadzo. If you would want to get hold of me, the easiest way to get hold of me is using the LinkedIn platform. Just Google Themba Mazibuko and communicate via LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. But otherwise, the point of today's presentation was there are certain common mindsets and habits that successful entrepreneurs, have. success is a body of knowledge that we can tap into. And if you are to be successful, why not join what all the other successful people are doing? Over to you, Tafazo.
Thank you very much, Themba, for such insights. I ticked a number, so I think I'm on my way to success. I just need to adjust here and there, because once in a while I spoil myself with the fast food, though I'm health conscious. So I just need to work on that. But thank you very much for the reminder and for new ideas. And yeah, we are on the path for success. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for the contributions. Tendai, we appreciate your contribution. And to everyone who's going to watch, we appreciate if you share the video. Let's grow together. Next week, we'll be discussing aging and money. We prepare for our old age now, so that when we get there, we'll have prepared. If you want to get hold of us, you can write me an email at fazwa@fazwamazibukospeaks.co.za. You can also visit our website, www.fazwamazibukospeaks.co.za. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Dream That Was Worth Fighting For. Thank you once again for joining us. Let's grow together. Let's implement that which we have learned. And your dream is worth fighting for. We want to meet at the end when we are all successful in our entrepreneurship and whatever ventures we are pursuing. Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you once again. Cheers.